one of the many things that gets overlooked as realtors, as brokers. We're in there and we're just looking for the high level stuff. How many beds, baths, area, price, square footage. This is where using our basic tools come in, and then you can use all the shiny stuff.
If you're a residential real estate agent earning $200,000 a year and you want to grow your passive income, this show's for you. Learn the secrets other agents use and hear from experts in our field in order to guide you along your journey to investing in assets like apartment communities so that you can turn your commissions into cash flow. I'm Randall McLeod. Let's go, baby.
All right. We are agents and we're building cash flow together. On today's show, I'm bringing on and I'm starting a series that is focused on all the top agents around the country. Not all of them, but it's going to be a top 10 agent from a major metro around the country. I'm bringing them on and I'm going to have them share their secrets, their tips, some things that are making them successful in this environment, and talk about investing as well. So I'm really looking forward to this series because it is very much in line with having you grow your passive income or grow your active income, the brokerage side of the business, in order to have more money that you can invest passively and get into some either multifamily deals or buy some property on your own so that you are growing your passive income. That is the whole goal of the show. And so this is the first of the series. And there's probably going to be, I don't know if it's just going to be this for the next 2 months, because there's a lot of people that I'm bringing on the show, but it's certainly going to be a theme that we're just going to sprinkle these interviews throughout so that you're getting some tips, like current information about what's working in the market from around the country and things that you can implement immediately for yourself. So on today's show, we're going to bring on Emilio DiSpirito. He is a partner with Engel and Volkers in East Greenwich. And we go in deep. We talk about some of the things that he's doing in his market. And he talks about how they've positioned themselves as a bespoke brokerage where they're really catering everything to their clients' needs. We talk about how he is invested in some properties and how he works with his clients in order to make sure that they're getting the best service that they can possibly get, whether it's him buying a property from them or getting the highest price that he possibly can from them. So Emilio has his own radio show that he's been running for about 8 years or so. He's crushing it, and it's great to have him on and have him share his experience and his knowledge. I know you're going to get a lot from it. So listen through to the end and get all the tips and get your pencil out, get your pen out, take some notes, and I'm looking forward to it. So without further ado, let's bring on Emilio. I was looking at the website and saw like your price point seems like you're mainly focused in the like 1 to 3 million price point.
That's really where I'm pushing towards, but Rhode Island is a 500 median, so we handle all of it.
Yeah, 500 still, yeah, solid. San Antonio is probably more like a 350 median, 308 median.
Where are you? Texas, right?
Yeah, San Antonio.
San Antonio, beautiful.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So, all right. And then do you have a hard stop? Like, what's your timing here?
Yeah, I'm okay. I mean, I have a 3:30 in Providence, but I'm okay. I can push that back. It's just a clothier. He wants to sell me some expensive suits. So
there you go. Nice.
It's okay.
That's good. All right, Emilio, I appreciate you jumping on the show today. It's great to have you. I wanted to dive straight in, just to ask you a little bit about your history and how you got started into real estate.
Yeah, Randall, thank you so much. Great show. Appreciate being here. So this was about 11 years ago, and I was actually selling toilet paper and urinal cakes door to door. And one of my friends said, "What are you doing?" And he's like, "You need to come sell real estate." And I never, ever thought I'd be doing it. You know, it's one of those things I always said, I'm never going to do this, Randall, never going to do this. And I did it. And I never looked back. And it was extremely difficult at first. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, what made you think you were never going to do it? You never thought of real estate as a business, or you never thought that you would succeed in it?
Well, I mean, so think about this. Like when I was in my young 20s then, right? So growing up, when you think of a realtor, you might think of like maybe your neighbor's mom or somebody, you know what I mean? Like I didn't know any realtors that were really like knocking the ball out of the park. I was never exposed to that. I come from like a blue collar family, low middle class. You know, we always grind, we worked hard. And I just never saw all of that up front. I never saw what you could do with a real estate career. So you got to imagine when he asked me that, those images of my neighborhood realtors, like part-time, and that kind of came into my head. And I was like, no, that's not for me.
Nice. Yeah. The soccer mom selling a house every few months or something like that.
Yeah, soccer mom nowadays, soccer dad. Who knows? I mean, what?
That's right.
Right.
Well, I mean, I've seen what you've done. So congrats on the success you're having up there. I mean, it's pretty impressive.
Thank you.
You know, we were talking just a minute ago, and the premise of the show is agents and building cash flow and how they can transition from only earning active income into some passive income as well. And so I want to get into that in a minute. But first, let's talk brokerage and kind of give me an idea, I guess, on some tools. Since you're so successful, right? What are some tools that you use that other agents can use in order to either win more business or be more successful or save some time?
Thank you. I think the biggest tool that we overlook is actually collaboration amongst each other. And I love that you reached out to do this interview because I think it's fantastic. We can learn from each other's experiences and we can really just kind of get a jump ahead of everybody else. So I think collaboration is number one. And I find far too often it's not done enough in real estate. That's number one.
Yeah.
You got two guys full of thoughts, right? It's great. So number two, as far as tools, man, it's tough to say because every brand is completely different. And I can tell you here at Engel and Volkers, like I've got tools and technology that I didn't have at other places. And while, of course, there's rivaling brands that have great tools and tech, they might have a whole different interface. But another tool that I think is so overlooked and undervalued is MLS. That is our lifeblood. There's so many things you can do with MLS. And one of the things I'm going to suggest that realtors can do right now is you can literally go back in time and you can see who had assumable mortgages. Now, assumable mortgages, think about that. You got people in the 2.5 to 3.5 range. Go find those houses, contact those sellers. Are you interested in selling? Connect them with buyers who can get the assumable mortgage. Even if nothing happens, you're opening up a unique conversation that no one else is having.
That's a solid tip. So on your MLS, you actually have access to that data if it's an assumable loan or not?
Yeah, actually, I think most MLSs should have something of the sort. And again, this is one of the many things that gets overlooked, because as realtors, as brokers, we're in there and we're just looking for the high level stuff. How many beds, baths, area, price, square footage. But what about thinking outside of the box and really taking that data that we have and figuring out how to leverage that and think outside of the box in challenging type of markets, especially a low inventory market? What can we do together? And again, this is where collaboration comes in. This is where, using our basic tools come in. And then you can use all the shiny stuff, the cloud CMAs of the world, the home value websites, AdWorks, all these other beautiful things to really throw your message out there. But you got to know what you're talking about first. And all of that data comes from the MLS.
Yeah, for sure. We kind of went over just briefly your background. So again, I want to just dive back into that only because thinking about how that transition from one question to the next, we didn't even touch on urinal cakes into selling real estate. Okay. So when was that?
So I literally jumped right in there. I actually had a job in between, and I got the job because on my resume, I put Master of Persuasion.
Yeah.
They laughed so hard. I literally got the job. So the toilet paper and urinal cakes was a Jansan company, right? We sold everything, floor mats, light bulbs, whatever, door-to-door commercial. And I loved it. It was fantastic. This was before there was cloud. And I had all of my stuff, all my clients saved on my computer and also on one of those
thumb drive deal.
Thumb drives. Thank you. Somebody broke into my house, stole both of it. And I was just like, this is years worth of stuff. What am I going to do? Whatever. So that happened. The economy tanked that time too. I literally lost almost everything, which is okay because it got me here. I love it. Right. So then I left there and I went and I started selling what they call structured cabling. I had no idea what this stuff was, like surveillance systems, fiber optic stuff, selling it to colleges, stadiums, whatever. Right. I failed. I got fired from there. Thank God. And that's pretty much when my friend was like, hey, I saw you did the toilet paper thing. You tried this thing. You'd be really good at real estate. I know it.
Yeah.
I jumped in.
Good friend.
He is. And Randall, I was so broke, man, for like 3 or 4 years. And I was driving through the same town now that I own a building and I own the brokerage there. And I remember people would look at me like, who is this guy? What a loser. I mean, the eviction notice on my door, I had the same one suit and I wore that thing 7 days a week. I had to, and I was out just hustling, knocking doors, I shoveled driveways to pay rent. And I would never, ever replace that time in my life, ever.
Yeah, hustle. The struggle mentality, you work through it and you know where you don't want to be. So now you know how to get where you want to go. So yeah, that's a solid backstory. I like that. I remember driving through town and this was back in 2009, I would say. I had this tiny little white car and I was driving around town just like meep, that guy. Just doing the same thing, trying to find a deal, make something happen. So I can appreciate that backstory. So then when did you actually open a brokerage?
Yeah, so that was 2 years ago. Engel and Volkers, they reached out to me and they said, hey, we'd like to talk with you. And I almost hung up on them. I go, who? We never had Engel and Volkers here. I know we have them in Texas. They're all over the world. And it's a big brand, but it wasn't in Rhode Island. I mean, Rhode Island's always the last to get everything good anyways. So it's, not so surprised. But they called. It was 2 years ago. And, talk about starting all over again, right? Like I was doing like 70 million a year on my team, crushing it. We were working for another brokerage and they came across and I saw this brand, fell in love with it and opened up shop. And I'm glad I did. But the first year and a half, 2 years, not easy opening a brokerage. And you're never prepared for that.
So speak to that then. What are some of the struggles? Like what is from going from, I guess, something that is done for you in a sense, if you're at another brokerage shop and they have their systems in place, what were some of the biggest struggles that you had setting up your own?
Well, I got to say, first off, I do have to say full disclaimer. I'm very, very blessed because I have an amazing business partner and he handles all the back end stuff. So he's the guy that handles all of the broker duties. Okay. Like, paperwork, hiring, onboarding, bookkeeping, thank God. And it allows me to handle sales coaching, the sales, marketing. Yeah. And then both of us focused on build out. So I would say our biggest challenge was the build out. We now own 2 shops 2 years later. We've got about 30 advisors and we are, I would say, probably the fastest growing brand here in the market. We're picking up a ton of market share. We're picking up a ton of fantastic top end advisors. But the struggles getting there were that we bought our own buildings. We couldn't lease from it. I could not picture myself leasing. So the buildings that we bought needed to be specific and they needed to match the iconic shop concept of our brand. So have you ever seen an Engel and Volkers brand before?
Yeah.
Okay. So, when you're looking at one of those shops, it's hard to explain. It's like Apple meets Tiffany meets cafe. Yeah. It's beautiful, right? And we literally took what they said to a T and made both shops perfect. And we did not realize how much this was going to cost. And it was just money after money after money. You had to meet with the historical society. You had to get approvals for this and that. So the red tape, Randall, I got to say, the red tape in any real estate project, zoning, this, that, whatever else, very, very difficult. Yeah. That was the hardest part. Yeah. And then,
did you do 2 shops at the same time or you open one and then you later did the other?
So we basically opened 2 in 1 year. We bought 2 buildings within about a year and a half of one another. And one's a condo, one's a full-on building. Okay. But the build out and the grand opening, it ended literally within, I think, 9 months of one another. Yeah. So both were open.
Yeah. Nice. Same town or just two opposite ends of the city or what?
We were Engel and Volkers, East Greenwich. So we're dead center in Rhode Island and we're playing this thing like a chess piece, man, right? So Rhode Island, you got to be strategic here. The competition, like most markets, is very fierce and it's very hyper local. So we knew by starting in the center of the state, in the wealthiest town of the state, that we'd be able to take this brand and expand and kind of get into some of the other markets, like let them grow legs. And then we have our second shop here in the Barrington East Bay area. And if you're familiar with Rhode Island, it's not far from Newport. It's not far from Boston and the other side of the state pretty much. But the state, it only takes you 40 minutes to get from one side to the other. So I got to say, we've got the whole state covered with these 2, but we are still looking to grow further on after this.
Nice. Yeah, that's the drive from San Antonio to Austin. That's how long it takes.
Yeah.
Still middle of the state.
It's awesome
for us down here. So So what does your brokerage look like? If I'm an agent and I want to come join your team, like what am I getting, just out of curiosity? Is it how are you guys structured?
Well, I got to tell you, one of the funny things is, have you ever heard, I'm sure you have you ever heard anybody say like, I don't work for competing brokers?
Yeah.
You ever hear that?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So are you working for complacent brokers? Because I got to tell you, our advisors love that I'm in the trenches with them throwing grenades, bro. Like I'm out here, I'm in the war. I'm here. I know what they need because I'm doing it.
Yeah.
So I get in the market and I'm crushing it here with them, and I'm able to take them on and coach them and with them too, because we learn together. And that's going to be, I would say, the biggest benefit locally. But in addition to that, globally, I think our network with Anglo-Folkers is vast. 5 continents, 32 countries, 17,000 advisors, 1,100 plus shops. There is not one place on the globe really that we're kind of far from, which is pretty unbelievable. And if we're not there, then we have network of other companies that are.
Yeah, for sure. So getting back to kind of the tips, tricks, and that sort of thing that you may employ, maybe not tricks, but things that you use, are there any strategies that you use or you can point to and say, this thing wins me more deals than anything else? Like I go in, is it just market knowledge? Is it your stylish looks? What's going on? What is it that gets you there?
Thank you. You're too kind. I got a filter. It's all filtered.
I got to do the same.
No. Hey, man, I say it's perseverance and grit. So I don't mind rejection. It's okay to me, right? But what I found out was if you work harder than everybody else just to get in front of your potential client, they're going to know what kind of person you are. So I'm going to give you a couple of things that we do here now at Anglo-Folkers, our advisors. And by the way, our agents are called advisors. Our offices are called shops. No one wants to go into an office. People want to come into a shop to buy stuff. And our place is beautiful, wide open, and you want to come in here, right? So our advisors also are not the people that go in and slap a lockbox on. We personally show all of our properties, which I know is kind of crazy. There's nowhere else really in the country that does this, but in Rhode Island, it's still pretty common. And we really look to work with our clients for life, okay? We want to help them build wealth. And we really want to work with the family offices. We really want to. So there's a lot of that type of stuff that we're doing, okay? I forgot your question. Look at that.
Tools, tips, things that win you more deals,
That's right.
But I mean, you're speaking to it, right? It's the whole appeal, it sounds like, of your shop and the way you've structured it and the way you've set it up.
It's more than that too, though. It's not only that, it's also because the public sees that, okay? But it's also just dressing the part, right? Like back in the day when I was doing the janitorial products, the toilet paper and urinal cakes, right? I used to wear a tie to work and I was the best dressed guy. And they used to always laugh at me and stuff, right? And that's the thing, right? Like I always, in our market, it's not uncommon to see people walk around flip-flops and shorts. And that kills me because these people, I don't care if they're first time buyers or they're buying a second home for $7-8 million. For me, they deserve somebody that is there to represent them to their fullest. Okay. And it needs to be the best service that they're ever going to get in their life because they're spending, even if it's $250,000 again, or 7 million, 10 million, they're spending a lot of money and they need to trust that you can do it. So I tell all of our advisors, appearance is everything. Number 2, have a resume. So before I even speak with people, I usually email them or snail mail them my resume. I wax seal that envelope.
That's a nice touch.
Yeah. And that's an Anglo-Folkers thing. The resume thing is something that we do here. And we just do whatever we can do to understand their needs. And we don't need to blurt out all this stuff about us. They got our resume. They know who we are. It's all there. They can see our reviews online. People have Google. They're going to find if you're with a beautiful, great brand that's reputable, they're going to appreciate that. So now I just turn it, what can I do for you? I listen and then I cater my presentation around them.
Yeah.
One other thing I really got to mention with Anglo-Folkers though is we have this beautiful like jewelry box. It looks like a jewelry box. It's white. And we can put all of our distinctive marketing materials in there, all different kinds of guides and really beautiful things, places where we advertise our listings, exposés. And I will literally FedEx that to them overnight.
The whole box.
The whole box, brother. So when I find expireds or withdrawals, I'm either sending my assistant out there with our beautiful bag, knocking on the door. I'll send them a video book maybe with a quick message about their home. Hey, I know your house. I showed it before, blah, blah, blah. Let's meet up. So those are like kind of the tools and tech and things that we're doing to get in. And anybody can kind of do that stuff, then kind of curate their own stuff. But here, all of that's done for us.
Yeah, that's amazing. Solid tips. Anybody listen to this is not doing some of those, implement those immediately. You can create your own little box. It doesn't have to be little, but it sounds like a nice professional touch to everything that you do is really what it is. And then couple that with, listening to your clients and actually knowing what they want to do and hearing what they're looking for. So, all right. Well, thanks for sharing that. So are there any major KPIs you guys track? Like what is, I got an agent, he's coming in and he's going to do some work. What's the number one thing you want him doing? What is that movie? What's the baseball movie where he's got the one thing? I forgot.
Oh, I don't know. I'm not a sports guy or
Moneyball.
a movie guy. Moneyball. Oh, with Brad Pitt, right? Yeah, I've never actually seen that. So the key performance indicators is actually, so that's something that I've been working on building out for our shop, because what I find is that I have this all in my head and I just do it. And I know I need to do this, and this. And as I've stepped into this coaching role for the past 2 years, I realize areas where I'm lacking as a coach. And the KPI, I'm so glad you brought that up, is something that I feel every agent, every advisor, we need those, especially when you start out. So basically, we want to measure how many calls it's going to take you to get the appointment, how many appointments you're going to get until you close on something. It is so simple, right? And break it down. So, I'm not sure how to answer that more like granular at this time without having that list in front of me. But it's all about making those calls, putting yourself out there, being uncomfortable, whatever you got to do. If it's knocking on doors, making the calls, networking, you got to get in front of people to get those appointments. For sure. Yeah. The KPI. So on our investment side, we had a number that we would track, but we tried to boil it down to one activity that is the most important activity for that person, that butt in that seat, right? And so a book that we always work off of is Traction, Gino Wickman. It's something that it's a business. Do you have it? Oh, I thought you were about to pick it up and show me the book. Oh, no, I'm writing this down. Yeah. No, it's called the Entrepreneurial Operating System, EOS. And so Traction's a solid book for that. And they go through the KPIs and how to track them and give you some systems and things you can download. So certainly would look at that. We had everybody in our company read. It was like a light version. So the owner would read the heavy duty, like how to, and then you'd have everybody in the company I would give the books to. So it certainly helped them get on board, everybody in the right seat, rowing in the same direction so that we all knew what we were looking for. But yeah, we distilled it down. Each role had one specific thing that was their most important. Acquisitions teams, you got to get contracts. Like that's your number one thing, So when did you start that? We started that probably 2018. Where have your sales gone since then? Oh, they skyrocketed. Yeah. We were doing, a number of deals, and then we started doing 50 a year. And so it's different from brokerage, right? We were actually transacting. So we're the principal in the deal, buying them, wholesaling, doing that sort of activity. So, and rehabbing. So I had a rehab company. We were taking down a number of those and flipping those houses. And so it's just when everybody got on the same page and you have your weekly meeting and your daily stand-ups and all those things, everything starts rolling and rocking in the same direction. So yeah, if everybody knows they have to hit a KPI, then your job gets a lot easier, because then you can just see their weekly percentage. I can share the way we tracked it if you want. I'll shoot an email to you. Yeah, I'm all ears, man. Absolutely. It really is like, what's your goal? Okay, I need to have 10 appointments this week. And then throughout the week, you're ticking off how many you had. And it'll say, well, you only had 7. So you only were 70% of your goal. And like every single week you get to see it. So it's very helpful. But okay, we'll move on from that. The KPIs, they're huge. That book has been fantastic. So he has a number of other articles and things that you could take a look at as well. So let's see. I want to jump in. We'll talk about investments in just a minute, but it sounded like you have a history of doing, you said 1031s, and you also talked about family offices. And so are you locating residential properties for family offices, or are you working with them on the commercial side? Like, where are you in that realm? So this is something newer now with moving into Engel & Volkers, right? I never even heard of family offices before that. I was with HomeSmart before. HomeSmart's a fantastic company. Shout out to them. Whole different type of level of clientele though. right? So as far as that, I'm not so well versed where I'm going to come out here and say I'm the expert with family offices yet. Okay. So if we can hold that for another podcast, I'd appreciate that. But where I am extremely well versed in is flipping homes, 1031 exchanges, working with investors, working with people buying, oceanfront properties, things of that type of nature.
Okay. So when you're talking 1031, are you talking again on the residential side, or were you focused on the commercial side?
Yeah. So we're mainly residential here.
Okay.
I've done some commercial.
Yeah. You buy your 2 buildings. That's 2 at least. Yeah.
Yeah. We've done some others too, but I look at it as with residential, I'm proficient. I've got over 1,000 transactions successfully closed. So for that, I think it's something along the lines, once you hit 10,000 hours of work in a certain field, then you're an expert. And I feel like I've done, you're probably the same way, right? You work double what people normally do. 80 hours to me is nothing. I enjoy it. It's a hobby. So we're well past 10,000 hours here in residential. But what I've learned along the way is that real estate really offers you the best way to build your assets, right? Because look, you're interacting in a typical transaction. There's 52 people involved. That's insane. So, we're meeting bankers, we're meeting attorneys, we're meeting our clients who could be doctors, movie stars, architects. It could be anybody, right? Any walk of life. And it's just such a beautiful thing because you get to pick their brains, you get to learn what they have going on. But, one thing directly related to all of those people, Randall, is the fact that they invest their money in real estate and they do not, or businesses, and they do not let it sit in a bank account to basically depreciate, right? To get eaten up by inflation.
Let's keep going on the 1031 and the investment side. So again, the whole idea of the show is to get some agents who haven't invested to start investing, whether it's in a single family house, a fix and flip, a wholesale, whatever it is, but stop just working on the service side of the business and actually get into real estate as the owner and the principal. And so have you invested? It sounded like you said you've done some flips. So talk to the investing side of your background and where you are now.
Yeah. So here's what happened. A couple of years ago, I was going through a divorce. And at that time, also, my brother was getting out of the Coast Guard and he was going through a divorce, right? So our lives were upside down, right? I'm starting this new brokerage. I'm going through a divorce, whatever, right? There's whatever. You got to keep trucking forward. So he was like, man, what am I going to do? My life is changing. And I was like, dude, me too. Everything's upside down. So he was an engineer. He was a chief warrant officer in the Coast Guard, 23 years of service for our country. God bless him. And I said, bro, let me find deals. And you can go in and renovate them. You can run the crews. This is what you've done in the Coast Guard, but on ships, if you can run a city on the sea, you can run a small raised ranch in Warwick, Rhode Island. You know what I mean? Easy. So he's like, that's brilliant. So he got out of that. And then we leveraged private lending for those deals. I find deals all the time. A lot of times things that people want me to list, and it's easy. I'm very transparent with people. And I say, listen, this is what you're going to have to do to get this amount of money out. This is the estimate of what it's going to cost you, or we'll give you a cash off for this. Done, right? So they know. And him and I, we've done, I want to say about 22 together. My other brother, that's Robert, my other brother, James, quit his job, jumped into the family business, and they're both GCs. James is working to get his real estate license as well. So that's one of my businesses. And that one, I love that one because I get to work with my brothers. We source the projects, we get to pick all the finishes out, all this beautiful stuff. We get to make these homes beautiful and we get to give back to the neighborhoods. And you can see in certain neighborhoods, when you start doing that, the neighbors kind of hold their head up a little higher. They start to improve their homes and the values across that whole neighborhood get to improve little by little by little. So you're really improving people's lives in so many different ways while giving turnkey homes to first-time buyers.
We're proud to be sponsored by Ridgeline Investment Group. Ridgeline has a track record of transacting more than $53 million in assets throughout Texas. Ridgeline is currently looking to acquire 100 to 200 unit Class B multifamily communities between 5 and 20 million in San Antonio, Temple, Waco, Tyler, and other Texas secondary markets. To learn more about Ridgeline Investment Group, visit www.ridgelineig.com.
Yeah, I love that. I mean, that's the same model I employed, being on the broker side. And that's one of the things, like if you're seeing real estate day in and day out as an advisor and you're not seeing those opportunities, or at least offering some sort of opportunity for a seller to get out of a situation that, a cash offer may make more sense, then you're one side, singularly focused rather than looking for opportunity, I guess. So that's great. So yeah, you have that as an add-on, essentially. When it makes sense, you do it. And otherwise you're, listing and hitting those high numbers for your sellers when you can do that. So
absolutely.
What you said, that's one business. So you have that, and then you have the brokerage. What else? Sounds like you had something else.
Yeah. So I've got, rental properties. So, okay. But the rental properties, what I love about rental properties, listen, if there's anybody listening here, please, when you get a nice commission check, okay, put some of that away for taxes, prepay your taxes, whatever, right? Okay. But don't let that money sit in the bank account. Take some of that money, invest it back in your real estate career, but take the other money and buy a multifamily if available. And if not available in your market, figure out what the next best thing for cash flow every single month, but more importantly, long-term asset to protect your money and make sure your money grows, right? That's what you want to do. Now, there's going to come times where you buy a property and then you're like, wow, this value is like through the roof right now. I can trade. I'm going to give you for instance, I got a 1-bed house in a local town over here, $67,000. It's like 2019, right? Sold that. And with the proceeds of that, using the 1031 exchange, and if you don't know what that is, Google that. It's amazing. But it basically allows you to move that money from one like property, a rental, into another or separate. I took that 1-bedroom unit and I turned it into 16 bedrooms across 8 units, $0 out of pocket. Okay. So you can literally take something short like that, again, as real estate agents. And Randall, I think this is what you're trying to really hit home with. And I love it. I've listened to your podcast before, and you do a great job of this. We have the opportunity to see stuff before it even hits the market. Like, we know what's going on out there, right? We have a pulse on it better than anybody. Okay. So if you can find opportunities and leverage those ethically, always do it. And then when the time comes, sell it. Don't touch the money. Put that money into something else. And now you've just kicked the can down the road on taxes you're going to pay, but you're leveraging that money now to increase your monthly cash flow.
Yeah, your basis. So I just had another guest on, and he's a fund manager and an operator, large multifamily assets in the Texas market. Phenomenal conversation. And he talks 1031s. And if you think about it, okay, so your basis, I don't know if you pay cash for that deal. If you financed it, I'm not really sure. But say you paid cash $67,000, and then you turn and you sell that, whatever your step up was or whatever your actual sale price was sufficient for you to not have to come out of pocket with any more money in order to acquire the new 8-plex. Is that what you said?
A 3-family and a 5-family, okay. 25% down on both, plus closing costs.
Yeah. So now your initial $67,000 investment is now earning cash flow on a 3 and a 5 unit. And you roll that again to get into a 3rd generational asset, and maybe you buy a 50 unit or something at that point with that same $67,000. So I don't know if you have looked at your cash return on your $67,000, but it's definitely higher than whatever you would have been into this 5 and 3 unit deal comparatively. So yeah, it's amazing. It's very, very, very powerful. So once you start turning those things and rolling your 1031s, your initial investment starts to really grow. It's pretty amazing. So I'm glad you brought that up, and good for you for doing that.
Thank you.
So you've got rentals, you've got some flips going on. Have you ever owner financed anything or done anything like that? Carried paper?
Not yet. I haven't done that.
I love those deals. Let me tell you one reason I love them. So in San Antonio, I was buying properties and I bought one for $7,000. This is a crazy deal, but I bought it for $7,000, didn't have clear title. I tacked on to, I did all these things. Anyway, I was in it for about $40,000. I owner financed that property for, I think, $150. So I'm in it for $40, owner finance for $150. And my actual interest rate that was on the face of that note, I gave an 8% rate. I think I got $10,000 down. And so on $140,000, my rate was in the double digits, like 20, 30%, right? Based on my $40,000 investment. And so that, and then I don't have taxes, I don't have insurance, I don't have maintenance, I don't have anything on those properties. And so you can exponentially grow your returns based on those owner finance. Now, some of those, like back in 2008, when I started buying some of these houses, I paid $20,000 for some houses back then and owner financed them. And now, he may owe, I think I owner financed for $60,000 and he may owe about $20,000 on that deal. But it's worth, because of the way the east side has gone in San Antonio, it's worth probably like $300,000 and he hasn't fixed it up. It's just the land that is worth so much. So you have to deal with seeing that. You're like, man, I could have, but at the same time, all the interest that I've earned $150,000 or so on that deal. So if you're ever interested in doing that, happy to chat with you about it, kind of give you some docs and all the stuff that we use.
Pretty amazing. Absolutely. It's just, again, there's so many different facets to this. It's unbelievable.
Yeah. So, all right, let's see. We got 142. Okay. So you got some investments. Okay. So we'll talk about like funds and syndications. So on the commercial side, have you taken any of your money and started investing in like a syndication for apartment communities, or have you invested in other assets?
No, not yet. So as far as that goes, I'm looking at a potential development here in Rhode Island that we may take over, and it may turn into something of the sort, but that is not something that I'm well versed in. And that is something that I want to learn more about. And that's why, when I saw your podcast, I started listening to that.
Yeah.
I know you do that, right?
Yeah, for sure. So the syndication side and the fund side of the world, it's coming from the single family world and investing and constantly going out and asking for funds every single time I wanted to flip a house or do something. I wanted to get away from that. And so that's what a fund does. A fund allows you to have a pool of capital, and then you go out and you are deploying that capital into the investments that make the most sense, right? And so, if you are flipping houses, you can do this with friends and family money. You can go out and pull some capital, and then you're paying your family back instead of the bank, right? If that's like an option. So it's an interesting world. The syndication side is where you have the asset already lined up, and then you're going to go out and you're going to raise for just that specific asset. Once it sells, everybody gets their money back and you move on, you do it again on the next one. So the fund just allows you to deploy the capital over and over again, depending on how you set it up and structure it. But if you haven't, you may want to look, if you're interested, obviously, but if you're interested in like 150, 250 unit apartment complex, you can find operators local to your area and see if they are taking investors on, and then you can start getting their opportunities as they come out. And so, $25,000 to $100,000 minimum investment typically, and you're looking at 8% preferred return, and then some kind of 70-30 split or something like that, whatever that operator's offering. But it's an easy way for you to get into large apartments and start investing as a limited partner.
Yeah, that's not bad. I mean, 8%.
Yeah. So one of the things as a real estate professional, when you are investing in a large apartment complex, or it doesn't even have to be an apartment complex, it could be storage, it could be a number of things, but there's a thing called a cost segregation that you can put on a property. And if you haven't done it on your 8 units, then you may want to talk to a cost seg specialist. I had one on the show. His name is Yona Weiss.
I've heard of him. He's got a podcast too.
The dude's everywhere. He's everywhere. Yona, shout out to you again, my man. Great having you on. He can walk you through. There's typically like a minimum value size of the property before it makes sense for you to do. And so he's on one of the earlier episodes. If you're listening, you can go back and listen to that episode. But the cost seg, what it does, if you are an investor in an apartment complex, let's just say 150 unit apartment complex, purchase price is $15 million. And let's say you invested $100,000. Typically, you can, when they do a cost segregation, what it does, it allows you to depreciate the individual items in a property and accelerate that depreciation. And you can take it in year 1, year 5. And so it's not just like a straight depreciation, 27-year depreciation. And so when you accelerate that depreciation, then as an investor in that deal, you get to capture some of that depreciation. As real estate professionals, all of us, we get to take 100% of that as a depreciation. If you're not a real estate professional, you can use it towards, certain things, mainly passive income earnings. You can write those down. But talk to your CPA. I'm not a CPA, right? Talk to a cost seg specialist. But the whole idea is on $100,000 investment, I may be able to get a $50,000 to $70,000 write-off on that investment just based on putting that money to work. So the stated returns that you're getting or being shown don't include any of that depreciation. It's really just what the deal is spitting off. And then you work out your depreciation on your own side because everybody has the opportunity to do that. So huge benefit to everybody listening. And
fantastic benefit.
Yeah. Dig into it. Reach out to Yona. I mean, he's solid. He's the cost seg king for a reason. He calls himself that on LinkedIn. But yeah, that's one thing. So, all right, let's move on. Let's talk. We got a couple of minutes left. I want to get your take because I'm in Texas. You are Northeast. So, what are you seeing in the market right now? What's happening up there? Have you guys had price declines? Have you had more days on market? Like, what's going on up there? Give me the high level.
Yeah, so I know across the country we're seeing that, but over here in Rhode Island, we're actually seeing prices appreciating still. So Rhode Island Housing, nonprofit that helps first-time buyers, has put a program out there with the state of Rhode Island where a first-time buyer gets a grant for $17,500 for closing costs and down payment assistance. What happened was they've released this while our inventory is near an all-time low. So check this out, right? When COVID hit, you remember everybody pulled their homes off the market, right?
Yeah.
Happened in San Antonio, I'd imagine. Okay. People are nervous. I don't want sick people, whatever. So we had 621 single families in all 39 municipalities here in Rhode Island on the market at once. That's it. And 621 homes on the market at once. That's nothing. Okay. And we've got a population of roughly 1 million. Right now, we have under 700 single family homes on the market. The inventory is so scarce. We're supposed to normally have over 4,000, homes. And those are small numbers compared to some other markets, but
that's about the same in San Antonio. Yeah, we're about the same.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So your city is the same as our whole state, which is funny. It's amazing. So basically what's happening here is the supply is so low, the demand is so high, and these buyers can purchase homes up to $546,000 with this grant program. Massachusetts, our neighboring state, is offering up to $50,000 for first-time home buyers through mass housing. So now what we see here is a whole trickle effect, I would guess, right? Where people are selling their homes that they purchased maybe a year ago at $350,000, right? They're selling them for maybe $400,000 now, and they're buying up into the $600,000 or the $700,000 or $800,000. And it's this full circle again, and it's really, really pushing this market along. It's pretty wild because it got slow for several months. And one other thing too is rates dropped. They're at the high in October, right, of last year. And they went from like 7.8, 7.5, 7.8 down to like 5.2, 5.3 for well-qualified buyers. That's a 2% drop in interest rates too. The market is flooded. We've got lines of people down the road again. And this is Rhode Island right now. So it's a fantastic spot for sellers.
Yeah, I was going to say, so the sellers are coming back. You think it's going to be a busy spring?
It's going to be a very competitive and busy spring for realtors because, if you're not owning the listings, you're out. If you don't have listings, you don't have market share, you're out of the business. We're seeing, I think, roughly 20 to 30% of realtors have left. And you're probably seeing that too in San Antonio.
Yeah, honestly, I'm not tracking that, so I couldn't tell you. Yeah, that's an interesting stat to know. I wouldn't doubt it just based on the market tightening up and the free and easy money that was floating around a couple of years ago,
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's see.
I could talk about the media side of things that I do, like
fire away.
How I leverage that.
Please do. Yeah. So I noticed you have a show of your own, right? So how do you leverage that and how does that work?
So the DiSpirito Team Real Estate Show, it's been on air for 8 years here on iHeartRadio, 3 different stations, FM, AM, and streaming in iHeart. And we do have a podcast on SoundCloud that we keep updated. And Randall was busting my chops before we got on. He's like, dude, I checked. Nah. You're on Apple. No, it's okay. It's okay. So we're on Apple Podcasts and several others, but for some reason our feed to those stopped. So that feed was going through Anchor. Have you ever heard, Anchor?
Yeah.
Yes. You put your podcast in Anchor and it blasts out to like 8 or 9 different podcast, channels, which is fantastic. But I got to talk with my editor about that because I didn't realize. I don't go Google like my podcast. I don't listen
every
to it
day. Every day, just wake up and Google yourself, man, to see what happens.
Right. I mean, I do. While we're on it, though, I think that you have to Google yourself, though, if you're a professional, because you have to see what other people are seeing.
Yeah, for sure.
And this is part of the reason why I do the podcast, do the radio show. So check this out, right? So we do our radio program again for 8 years now, and we hit topics that people are searching. So there's a fantastic book called They Ask, You Answer. You ever hear of that book before?
Not, but I will be writing it down.
Okay, so They Ask, You Answer. So the gentleman that wrote this book, and I listened to the audiobook, and that's another tip that I want to share too. When you're in the car, shut the music off, right? The music is for high school kids, okay? When you're in the car, learn. You got that windshield time. If you're not on the phone closing deals, you need to be in school. And you need to be a student of the game. And I read roughly 26 to 30 books a year doing this. And it's like, like, dude, I was a DC student. Actually, I was a failed student. I failed a lot. And I literally talked myself into graduating high school, right? Dropped out of college, right? So like, for me, the degree doesn't matter, right? What matters is how much you know about a subject you're specializing in, right? And how good and proficient you are at that. And when you can self-educate yourself and read these books, you're going to blow people out of the water, right? You're going to steamroll the industry, I'm telling you. So I learned early on in real estate, if you're teaching things, you're also learning, because you're not going to show up on the microphone and just show up and throw up. You're going to learn, and you're really going to dig into whatever it is you're talking about. So that's how we learned about 1031 exchanges. That's how we learned about 203K loans. That's how we learned about all those little things. And we chop our radio show up into segments. And then we make sure it hits YouTube. YouTube is the most important thing. YouTube is the second most search engine in the world. And when you have the right kind of labels on stuff, some of your videos are going to get 10 views. Some of them are going to get 40,000 views. Okay. But the calls over time come in. And the other thing too, is when people are Googling you, you are now the expert in your market. You Google anything in Rhode Island, I'm going to come up somewhere, somehow in there. Okay. So the media arm of it is so huge. And in addition to that, look, you found me and you said, hey, come on this podcast. I've been on over 60 podcasts around the country, radio shows, podcasts, all because of that. And I've connected with people that have changed my lives. There's that C student again, right? But
you have two brothers, so lives. You're changing them all.
There you go. Thank you so much. So, but the network that you can build with this, the authority in your marketplace that you can have by doing anything consistently, and it doesn't even have to be amazing. As long as you're consistent and you're really working hard to put content out there and putting good stuff out there, you're going to run your market.
For sure. Yeah, I second that. It took me a long time to actually get it going. And I love the interviews. I love the conversations. It's being able to have conversations and just call you up and say, hey, I'm seeing what you're doing. Come on the show. Let me feature you and check you out. Then we can, you and I are now connected and it's solid. I can't second what you just said enough.
Can I give you a quick story of the power of podcasts?
Sure.
And the power of media, right? So I started another podcast last year called From 10,000 Meters. It's a leadership view. It's a leadership podcast. And I've got some pretty impressive people that have come on the show. And that is something that I've done 3 episodes of, and I didn't walk away from it, but I paused it. Okay. And this is something I will be going back to. I find it fascinating to understand what makes people excited, enthusiastic, jump out of the bed in the morning. And something with all the thought leaders, all the business people out there in the world, they all have that in common. They're enthusiastic. They believe in what they're doing. It's infectious to be around these people. I love them. I admire them. I don't care what they're selling, what they're doing. But hearing somebody is like, when they're that excited about whatever it is that they're doing, I'm all in, right?
Oh, yeah.
So one of my guests, I can't say his name because this is going to be coming out in the future, got a call from ESPN and they said, hey, we saw you on this podcast and you talked about this, and this. We want to do a show on you. Guy's like, what? He's got a full-blown production team that's going to be following him around for weeks. And his show is going to get aired all over the world, all from sitting down and talking on a podcast about what he loves and what he knows. And like, look at that. I mean, this guy could turn into the next Paulie D. And I say Paulie D for, I don't know if you remember that show.
Yeah.
But another Rhode Islander from the same town.
Yeah. Paulie D. That was, what was the name?
That was Jersey Shore.
Jersey Shore. That's right. Yeah. Paulie D. Yeah. Gym tan, shorts, laundry, whatever. GTL.
Yeah, whatever it was. Yeah. But I mean, so don't ever second guess yourself if anybody's listening to this. Like, just, you know what? If you know something or want to know about something, just dive in.
Yeah, for sure. I second that. It's been helpful. It's been, again, I love having the conversations. Similar to you, there's niching down and having this show to where I can help as many agents as possible is fantastic. But I also want to have a show where I can just bring on business leaders and talk to them and really have an opportunity to get to know them. So I don't know, maybe we'll have to come on, talk to you about your show and how it's working out.
Do you know Barry Habib? He's an economist, a housing economist.
No.
You got to look this guy up. So Barry Habib, he runs MBS Highway. Shout out to Barry. He is the guy that predicts what's going to happen in the market with rates, with this, that, you know, understands he's an economist. Okay. Yeah. It's hard to sum up what this guy does. And there's several banks that will just, you know, they'll plug into his software and they'll see what's happening so they know when to contact their loan officers to say, hey, do this, do that, whatever. It's so valuable what he does. Well, I reached out to him and I had him come on my podcast, and just unbelievable segment. I did it again maybe a year later, and then I believe a third time asked him to come on. Now, this guy, he's a heavy hitter, right? He's very well known, and he comes on the show one time and I wasn't prepared at all. And he gave me a verbal assault, just a verbal punch right to the gut. And it was so nice. It sucked. But let me tell you something. When you are interviewing or have the opportunity to interview high-level people like that, it keeps you sharp and it keeps you accountable and it keeps you on your toes. Bro, I was so embarrassed that I wasn't ready for this guy. I dropped the ball on that segment. I sent him some steaks from like Omaha Steaks and stuff. I'm sorry. I dropped the ball. I'm fully accountable. And you know what? And he understood. Because he's a great guy, but he's a busy guy. So the whole point of that is that it's okay to fall on your face. I do it every single day, right? But you also get to learn from high-level people like that, and they will hold you accountable.
Yeah, and you owned it. I think that's a big key takeaway right there. Hey, I messed up. You know, here's some steaks.
Here's some steaks, bro.
Yeah, that's right.
But shout out to him. You know, I'll never forget.
I'm definitely going to look him up, and I'll put his contact, maybe a link or something to him in the show notes as well, so people can find him pretty easily.
Yeah, he's great.
All right. Well, Emilio, I want to wrap up with a few questions not related to your business. So, you know, what's your favorite pastime not related to work or play? I know you work 80 hours a week, like it's nothing. So what is it?
I got a couple of things. One of them is when I have my son, right? Because I have joint custody. When I have my son, that's it, man. I'm with my son. I've built systems for my business where I can put the phone down, I can put it away, and my team handles everything. My clients don't even know the difference, right? Because everything is like walking into the Ritz-Carlton. It's completely handled. That's fantastic. And I'm blessed to have those systems in place and the people behind me and with me to employ that. So my son first. You get to be a kid all over again when you have a kid. You have kids?
Yep, got two. And I absolutely learn from them every day. And I get to be a kid through their eyes, through them.
My son has taught me more about life than anyone else in his short 5 years, and he's been with us, and I learned so much from him every single day. So I know you can appreciate that, and other parents out there can appreciate it, but he allows me to hold myself to a higher standard. I wake up in the morning, I'm like, I don't want to work out. I'm going to be a sloth. And then I'm like, you know what? I have to perform at 150% because if I don't, I could die early. I'm going to miss time with my son. I'm not going to be able to provide. I got to build this legacy for him. So, dude, that keeps me going. So that's number one. Number two, I love to bike, like road bike.
Oh, yeah.
I don't wear those tights and stuff. Like
Come
you
on
see
now.
those guys.
I'm going to send you a pair.
You wear the tights and all that?
I don't bike. I don't cycle. I have a Peloton, but I don't.
I love the Peloton. I got a Peloton too, man. It's fantastic. But I love to road bike because I got to tell you, when you're out in Rhode Island, we're a coastal state. We've got 440 miles of coast, bro. So it's unbelievable. Such a small state with so much to offer. But we have bike paths everywhere because they're over old train tracks from the industrial age. So, I go like 40 to 60 miles at a pop, and when I'm on there, I actually started a podcast called Real Estate Basics when I was on my bike, because my mind just doesn't stop thinking. I'm listening to books. I'm doing this or that. I'm not listening to music. I'm listening to books. And I literally started a podcast doing that too. It's unbelievable. So biking, skiing.
Yeah. Oh, you ski? I just got back from snowboarding. How's this mountain? How's the snow out there?
Awful. New England has very low to no snow. And, we're really, really slacking this year in the snow department. I haven't been yet this year, but I do want to get out west, though. I mean, that's where it's at. You said you went to, Vail?
Yeah, Vail Breck. Yeah. Super nice. Yeah, we had good snow days. But yeah, I do the same, but I do it running. Like I'll go running, and it's the complete idea fest whenever I'm out like running. I don't listen to music. Usually don't have any headphones in. So I'm sitting there, I'm putting a note, like a voice text note to myself, like, we got to do this, got to handle, But yeah, it's a time for the brain to start working and chugging, usually in the morning too.
It is. And then one other hobby I just picked up is four-wheeling. And I almost feel it's not a midlife crisis, but I'm almost 40, right? And I feel like, I'm like, wait, is this a midlife crisis? I don't think so. Because who picks up four-wheeling at this age, right? But my brother's been doing it for 30 years almost. And for 20 something years, he was gone in the Coast Guard and never hung out with them. And now he four wheels, and it's a time for us to hang out, So we do. So I bought a beautiful four-wheeler, and man, I can't wait to take this thing out. I've just been driving around the neighborhood looking out for cops, because you're not supposed to. And
you're not supposed to what? Wait. What are you talking about? What are you not?
Oh, in Rhode Island, you can't ride.
You're on a four-wheeler. Okay. I don't know why I was thinking like a Jeep. I got you. Okay.
Oh, no. Like an ATV, a four-wheeler.
Got it. Yeah, my neighbor has one. He takes it hunting and does a lot of stuff. I rode him a lot when I was a kid, but I was going to say midlife crisis. I turned 40 a couple years ago, and I bought a Jeep. My wife's like, what is wrong with you? What's going on? You're definitely having a midlife. And then I got in an accident, totaled it. But I know, I want to get back out and go get another one. So it's fun. Four-wheelers are fun. Is it a manual?
No, this one is automatic. I got the Cadillac, bro, because you know what? It's all good. I'm not proficient in it, and I, take my time. But you know what? It's like adrenaline. And when you do this all day, real estate, and sit down at a desk, yes, it's fun. It's awesome. There's risk in what we do, especially in the investing side, which I love. But there's nothing like driving, 40 down a trail with trees everywhere and rocks, and it just brings out a whole different thing.
For sure. Yeah, you got to be present when you're doing that. What is the best memory you've had in recent history, 60 days or so? Like, what's the best thing that's happened to you?
This was literally 5 days ago. I was just sitting I'm in my Warren, Rhode Island shop right now, Barrington East Bay, but I was sitting in our East Greenwich shop, and there's 10 advisors that were there. And I'm just looking, and I'm like, I own this. And I was like, we did it. Look at all these people are coming here, and they're a huge part of it. But I was like, we did it. We're doing it. And I realized, because I've been so focused on doing, I got to actually see the fruits of the labor. And I seen, all these people, and we have such a fantastic group of people, man. They're all smiling, beautiful, awesome, just walking in dressed to the nines, and our place just looking amazing, showroom ready. And I just felt it. And I was like, we never pat ourselves on the back. I'm always telling myself how much I suck every day at whatever I'm doing, and that might be weird, but it keeps me going, man. I'm never, ever going to be to what I want to be, right? Never. And I think there was a famous Matthew McConaughey, love him. He said that his hero is his future self, who he'll never be, something like that.
Yeah, I remember that was when he accepted an award or something. He gave that speech from memory.
Amazing. And his book, Green Lights, really cool. You read that?
I haven't, no.
Check it out, man. Matthew McConaughey. And I did his Audible, so it was him talking the whole time. He's a Texan. I love that guy. Stand up, class act, gentleman.
That's solid. I'll look it up. But hey, one thing you just said about that was, to me, it's very hard to appreciate the journey that you're on, right? There's always a destination that it seems like you're trying to get to. And so the fact that you took a minute and actually appreciated the fact that you are going and you are there, right? You're still going, but you're like, okay, I can appreciate that I've done something. Kudos to you, because honestly, very easy for, I don't know if it's just real estate people or just highly driven people in general, just don't really appreciate the ride because it's always like there's a destination. So I find that with myself sometimes. So good work, man. Let me ask you one more thing.
Yes.
One or two people that have been most influential to either the way you think or your success. Name drop.
Man, I would have to say, as far as influential, cliche, but my dad, both my dad and mom growing up. But I mean, my dad, I would see both of them, man, actually, they worked so damn hard and they slaved, and like we never went without. We never had any frills. We never had anything, but we had God, whether you believe in God or not. We had God in our life. We had community. I always went to a good school. They paid for Catholic school, but they struggled. I always had fantastic role models that kept me in check. And they knew when to tell me I was screwing up, and they knew how to discipline me in a way where I feel like without them, without having my parents, I wouldn't be nowhere. So them first and foremost. Obviously, my whole family, brothers. I mean, there's a long list, bro. But the other person, Joe Fazio. So my business partner is the complete opposite of me. Okay. And he's like, I constantly learn from this guy because he's just so calm and collective. He's a silent assassin, okay? And he goes out there and just crushes it in sales and just is so good at everything he does. But he handles all of that stuff, like I said, that I'm not good at. But I've seen how well he does it and stays organized and puts systems in place in this, where now I find in my life, I'm doing it not only in work, but at home in life. And he's like really rubbed off on me.
That's fantastic. Right? If you read the EOS, the entrepreneur or traction, he talks about like there's a visionary and then there's an integrator. And it sounds like, when you have those two, that's when things start really clicking, because you're out and you're knocking it out. You've got all these ideas and these things you want to do. And then you're like, is it Joe? You say Joe Fazio?
Joe Fazio.
Yeah, you go to Joe and you're like, hey man, I got all these ideas. There's 20 things I want to do. And he's like, look guy, you need to do one or two. In 6 months, we'll get to the other ones. Yeah. Once you have that, like that duo, then that's when you start to crush it. So awesome. Yeah. We're at the tail end of it. I loved having the conversation, getting to know you better and, seeing what you're doing to succeed. The tips that you've shared, I'm sure the listeners can take away, implement some of those things and actually start earning some more money on their brokerage side, but also on the investing side. So really appreciate it. I'm going to drop your contact information down in the show notes so that anybody can reach out to you directly if they have any questions. And then we'll also link to your show so people can listen to that silky smooth voice you got, man, on the radio. So,
thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Surprisingly, most of the agents we speak with got into real estate hoping to gain passive income and become work optional. However, only 1 in 5 ever start investing. Most are simply too afraid to start. Once you get educated by listening to this show, you'll be able to overcome that fear and become the 1 in 5 who are finding financial freedom. Don't miss a single episode. If you want to stay up to date, the best way is to make sure you're subscribed. So if you haven't done that, go ahead and do it now. And we'll catch you on the next episode.